Hey, what's up, y'all? Y'all good? I hope so. Hey, listen, are any of you avid readers? Like, do you like good books? Do you love to read? Well, look, I do. And there are several books that I have read that really stuck with me. And one of them is Faith Under Fire. And it's a memoir, okay? And is 9 chapters. And I wanted to talk about it, especially since I haven't been watching or reviewing Love and Marriage Huntsville. I wanted to try to add different content to the channel, but when something is really like, if you want to call it interesting about Love and Marriage Huntsville, I will talk about it. And I really need to catch up on my Diara from Detroit and Charnita's World recaps because I I don't know. I guess I just got started to feel like, oh my gosh, people not even really watching it. Like, why am I putting all this energy into reviewing it if people not watching it? And I kind of gave up on it, but I'm going to pick it back up. I'm going to put it out there and whoever see it, see it. You know what I'm saying? But hey, let's get into the first chapter of Faith Under Fire, and y'all tell me what you think because I really think y'all gonna enjoy this, okay? So chapter 1 opens on January 30th, 1990 with LaJoy saying that she fell in love quite suddenly, like the love at first sight kind of love. She works 2 jobs. Her full-time job was as a writer and a producer of entertainment and information programming at a broadcasting network in New York, and her part-time job was a speech teacher at a broadcasting center in Queens, New York. So she decided to take a sick day from her full-time job. So the day before, she cleaned her desk, cleared all her calls, and turned in some work early. On her day off, she just took time to pamper herself until it was time for her to go teach at her part-time job. So she gets to work, and about an hour into class, she needed to make some copies of some handouts. She's on the way to the copy machine and she notices this very handsome man in the recording studio. She said he was tall with honey dipped colored skin, and she was so intrigued. So she ran into the director's office to find out who was this guy. And the director, whose name was Johnny, he was like, oh, him? Oh yeah, that's Steven. He cool. And LaJoyce was like, really? I have a brother named Steven. What a coincidence. So then she remembers that she actually came out there to make some copies. So she heads back to the copy machine. Before she does, she takes another long look at Steven. When class was over, Johnny introduced Steven to LaJoyce and said that he asked Steven to take her home. And she was like, you mean all the way to Brooklyn? That's like an hour plus drive. Steven said that he'll take her all the way to Pennsylvania if he had to. And LaJoy said that she was overwhelmed by Steven's charming demeanor. So after he said that, LaJoyce looked at Johnny like, is this guy for real? And Johnny gave her a wink, a sign of approval. So LaJoyce was like, okay, cool. Let me get my things. On the ride to Brooklyn, LaJoyce and Steven, they were just getting to know each other, just chatting it up, laughing and talking. But she noticed he kept saying, thank you, God. And that really piqued her interest because she was born and raised in the church. So she asked him, why did he keep saying that? And he said because he wasn't even supposed to be over at the school, but since he missed his final due to being in the hospital, he had to make it up that night. So he was saying, thank you, God, because if that hadn't happened, he wouldn't have met her. And since she was a reporter, she was curious to know why was he in the hospital. So she asked him, and he said it was because he had bleeding ulcers. And that was shocking to her because he looked so young. She asked him his age, and he said he was 31. But he'd been under a lot of stress because of his job and a bad marriage. But he feels like since he has met LaJoyce, things were going to get better. They had talked so much that when they realized it, they didn't know where they were. So Steven had to go all the way back to Manhattan and then to Brooklyn because that was the only way he knew how to circle back. So their 1-hour drive turned into a 3-hour drive. When they finally made it to her apartment, they exchanged numbers, and he waited until she made it into the house safely. And LaJoyce says she was on cloud 9. The next day at work, they had the radio on in the background, and then all of a sudden, you hear the DJ Bugsby say, here is Ready or Not by After 7, for LaJoyce Hunter from Steven. He wants her to know that he's coming for her, ready or not. Everybody in the office started screaming, and they want to know, who is Steven? Where did this Steven come from? You keeping secrets from us? Who is this Steven person? Do anybody know? He all out here dedicating songs and stuff. But LaJoyce wanted to know, how did Steven get Bugsy to make such a shout out before and after the song? So she called him up, and he said that he knew Steven because he was a part-time producer of the Quiet Storm radio program in Japan, and he worked for Mr. Harper. Now LaJoyce really thought this was meant to be. First, he had the same name as her brother. Then the programming director knew him. The DJ knew him. And now Mr. Harper knows him. And Joyce said that Mr. Harper was like a father figure to her. Bugsy said that Steven is someone that he would really like to see LaJoyce with. He said he could vouch for him because he really didn't care for that last relationship she was in. So later on at work, she received 24 long stem roses from Steven. She was like, wow, this guy's really pouring it on thick, but I love it. So she called to thank him, and Steven invited her to dinner. So they met up at a really fancy restaurant on the East River, and to her surprise, he had another 12 roses for her, and he told her those were for her to keep at home. After that date night, her and Steven had dinner twice a week, and since she was in entertainment programming, she always had tickets to different concerts, plays, and movies, so they were basically going out 5 nights a week. At this point, they have now been dating for 3 months, and she said that Steven had roses delivered to her job every week. She had to tell him to stop. She said they both agreed that they were definitely in love. It was love at first sight, like she said, and they had signed and sealed their relationship through their first night of steamy romance. Steven even introduced her to his mother and 2 sisters, who all lived in their family home in the middle-class area of Lakeview, New York. They all got along, and even her and one of the sisters looked alike. They both had that caramel-colored skin with brown eyes and sandy hair. LaJoyce soon became best friends with Steven's best friends, Stacy and his wife Claudette, and they all enjoyed midnight bowling, trivia games, and music. LaJoyce and Steven were spending so much time together that it was making it hard for him to get to work. So he practically moved into her apartment, but she refused to say he lived there. And whenever he would put his clothes in her closet, she would pack them in his bag because she felt like it was bad enough that they were sleeping together. So she wasn't about to play house too. That was against her religion, and her mom would not be too happy about that. She did have 2 roommates, Derek, who was an attorney, and his girlfriend, Tina, who was an accountant. They shared the apartment because they couldn't afford the $1,200 rent alone for their 2-bed, 2-bath apartment in Brooklyn's Clinton Hill section, and that was in 1989. Steven did offer to pay her portion, but LaJoyce wouldn't accept it. But on December 1st, 1990, her and Steven got married after only 11 months of being in a relationship. However, she said their ride to the altar and everything that followed after that was rocky. And she's going to tell us how she put her faith under fire and was betrayed by a thing called love. That's chapter 1, y'all. I think that's going to be good. I don't know if any of you have read this book or know the story, but it's based off a true story. If you do, please don't put any spoilers in the comments. And I need to know what y'all think. And the funny thing is, when I first heard parts of Risa Tisa's story, I thought that she was telling this story, but she wasn't. But it just reminded me so much of it that's what made me think about the book. But I hope y'all tune in for these reviews. There are only 9 chapters. I think we can make it through that. If some chapters are pretty long, I'm going to break them up so that the videos don't be too long. But y'all get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you believe in love at first sight? Like, have you gotten married in less than a year? Let me know. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to y'all later.